We have been given an equation y equals 2x minus 2 that represents a straight line. We have been asked to plot the coordinates of the point that form this line. The first thing we have to do is use the equation to create a table of values for x and y. Once we have created the table, we take a value for x, apply it to the equation, and find the value for y. Here we have taken a value of x of minus 2, put it into the equation, and calculated a value of y at minus 6. We do the same for other values of x until we have the table of values completed. When the table of values has been completed, each vertical pair of numbers represents a pair of coordinates on the graph. Our next step is to plot these coordinates on the graph. The coordinates minus 2, minus 6 are here. The coordinates 0, minus 2 are here. The coordinates 2, 2 are here. And the coordinates are here. Once we have plotted the coordinates, we draw a straight line linking them all together. And this line is the graph for the equation y equals 2x minus 2. And our last step is to label the graph with this equation. So let us review what we have just done. We had been given an equation y equals 2x minus 2. Taking a value for x, we put this value into the equation to find a value for y. Eventually we built up the table of values for our graph. Each vertical pair of numbers in the table of values represents a pair of coordinates in the graph. We plotted these coordinates. We then joined all the coordinates up with a straight line. Finally, we labeled the graph with the equation. When we want to measure the gradient of a straight line, we take a point where the line crosses the y-axis and measure across a number of units. In this example, we have measured across 2 units. And this number represents the value of the base. From the end of this line we draw a vertical line touching the graph. This is known as the height of the gradient, and in our example has a value of 3. To calculate the gradient of the graph, we divide the height by the base. So the gradient of the graph in this example is 3 over 2 or 1.5. Remember, when we want to measure the gradient of a straight line graph, we take a point where the graph crosses the y-axis. We measure across the x-axis for a number of units, then draw a vertical line up to where it touches the graph. The horizontal line forms our base and the vertical line is our height. To measure the gradient, we divide the height by the base. In our example we had the fraction 3 over 2, which means every 2 units we go across, we go 3 units up. Now this example gives us a positive gradient, but we can also have a negative gradient, as in this example. Whether you have a negative gradient or a positive gradient depends on the values on this equation, and this equation is the general equation for a straight line graph. In this equation, m represents the gradient and c represents the intercept of the graph line on the y-axis.